Hello everyone, welcome to PRATHAM Test Prep. I'm Ashish Bhargav and I welcome each and everyone here for daily news analysis that we do from Monday to Friday at sharp 11:30 a.m. In this session we discussed about all the important news from all major newspapers that we covered in this session. Majorly we discussed about the Hindu and Indian Express, and apart from that we discussed also about PIB news, which is Press Information Bureau. So that would be very beneficial for the irrespective of any student who are preparing for the exam or being an aware citizen. You should need to look into it, like what exactly is happening around in India and world. And in news, daily news analysis, we discuss about international news, economy based news, sports based news, science and tech, person in news, summits and conference, miscellaneous, and national news. And we also discuss about Supreme Court verdict, which is also important for especially for the law entrance exam. And one more thing that we discuss about state initiative also. And here is the quote of the day: if your voice is high, only a few people will hear. If your thought is high, then many people will listen. And to inculcate that kind of thought process, you have to develop to read the newspaper. And just one small positive thought in the morning can change your whole day. That is quote of Dalai Lama: study hard, no matter if it seems impossible, no matter if it takes time, no matter if you have to up all night. Just remember that the feeling of success is the best thing in entire world. And here is question of the day, and that is very important question of the day. The reason behind, at the end of the session we discuss about 3 to 5 questions, which is very important, and that will gives you the immense idea like what kind of questions is used to ask in your exam, and how you need to how you are solving that kind of questions, right? Here is the very first news: is no need for extra curbs on free speech of ministers. And that is Supreme Court verdict, is new verdict. So that's why I told you in the beginning of the class that we discuss about Supreme Court and High Court verdict as well. So a statement by a minister cannot be attributed vicariously to government by invoking principle of collective responsibility, and PM or CM does not have disciplinary control over all members. So what is freedom of speech and expression is enshrined in our article. So Article 19 Clause 1A says, Article 19, the freedom of speech and expression provides every citizen, make sure it's not a resident. Resident is someone like one who resides in our country. Like someone is like, we can say, is from Bangladesh and residing our country, so that we can say is a resident, not citizen. Citizen one who have voting rights at least. So freedom of speech and expression provides every citizen with the right to express one's view, opinions, belief, and conviction freely by word of mouth and writing, printing, picturing, or in a way other manner. So Article 19 Clause 2 confers the right of the state to impose reasonable restrictions on the exercise of freedom of speech and expression of the ground of sovereignty and integrity of India, security of the state and friendly relations with foreign states, public order, decency or morality, contempt of court, defamation and incitement of an offense. One more thing we have to understand in this article is the Supreme Court what exactly said, that additional restrictions on the right to free speech of ministers and government is not liable for, we can say, disparaging remarks made by them. So to curb this one, in a separate opinion, Justice B.V. Nagarata, the names should be remember that B.B. Nagarata, that deferred with the leading judgment on the point, and saying a minister's statement, if traceable to any affairs of the state for protecting the government, can be attributed vicariously to the government by invoking the principle of collective responsibility. This is all about the article is. Now moving further, the second one is quite similar article, is talking about public functionaries should be more responsible in their speech, Justice Nagaratna. So hate speech denies human beings by right to dignity, Justice B. Nagarata said in the separate opinion in the Constitution bench on Tuesday. So she said, right to dignity of a common man cannot be sacrificed at the altar of free speech, which is enshrined in our Article 19, Clause 1A. So every citizen must consciously be restrained in his speech and exercise the right to freedom of speech and expression under Article 19, Clause 1A, which we have already discussed, only the sense that it was intended by the framers of the Constitution to be exercised. And Article 19, Clause 1A does not vest with citizen unbridled liberty, and right to liberty is Article 21. Right to liberty is enshrined in our Constitution is Article 21. And we can say that liberty to be utter statements which are vitriolic, derogatory, unwarranted, have no redeeming purpose, and which is no way amount to communication of ideas. So we have to understand that the government can curb and obstruct the speech of someone for the sovereignty and integrity of India. So human dignity is a right that is enforceable, and Justice Nagratha said that hate speech, whatever is the content may be, denies human beings the right to dignity. Here is an editorial based news which is very important. This is playing Chinese checkers in 2023. So India is still requiring vital supplies, and China is striving to return to the mainstream. The border disputes may not escalate. So the latest India-China high-altitude border phase of has kicked chances of economic relation normalizing further into the long grass. So basically, जो चाइना है वो चाइना क्या करता है, imports करता है heavy lift every quarters, and the trade deficit has, we can say, ballooned at $70 billion. But smaller Chinese firms with their eye on India have dropped project. So social media giants like TikTok और बाकी भी sites को Indian government ने ban किया था, so have had to shut shop, and 3 Chinese telecom companies like we can say Vivo, Oppo and Xiaomi are facing endless tax wrangles. So basically what the government has done, so if the Indian government has done, like if you are selling the Chinese product, so you have to be impose heavy tax in our country. So India has put a blanket ban on the Chinese companies entering the country. But what more can India do if there is a constant military aggressions on the border? So it could introduce we can say a ban list like the US, but the Chinese could also be retaliate by cutting back imports of commodities like iron ore and easily be sourced elsewhere. So obvious that हमारी dependency China के ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा है in terms of import and export is concerned, and India is still a small player in China's world's view. Beijing would like to bring us to heel and accept to Asian predominance, but it is the immediate giant size issues. So we have to understand what India is going to do for this, and India is looking for massively expand its manufacture base. And I told you each and every session is that if the article is from the economy, so economy is divided into 3 sectors. One is primary, secondary and tertiary. So why India is lagging behind in import and export? Because हमारी manufacturing industry बहुत weak है. If you talk about primary sector and tertiary sector, so there are many PLI schemes, which is PLI, which means production link incentive. Production link incentive is a key industries. If this takes place in the big way, so that our country can be sure to need Chinese components for most of these industry. So if you have to rely on the Chinese intermediaries, good and capital goods to expand. So what exactly we need to understand is that PLI schemes for the promotion of MSME sector and small industries as well. So Chinese also argues India has shifted the goal post by the building better border infrastructure, and are deaf when it's pointed out they are being on an infrastructure building space. So now it will be India's turn to host the G20 summits, and the world leaders will say China want to internationalize the border issue and have the spotlight turn on it because of clashes. But there are always chances of a smaller conflict breaking out to a ground level. So many other countries are trying to defaming the name of the country India. So China is trying to defame the name of India because India is going to hold the G20 and entire world's view is on India. So that we can say China main views are with the US and Washington efforts to rally on China coalition. Moving further to the next news is UCC. UCC is what? UCC, which means that Uniform Civil Code. Uniform Civil Code. So what is Uniform Civil Code and why it is needed? So the history of debate around the Uniform Civil Code in India is, we can say, fractious. And it was championed by Jawaharlal Nehru against several odds based on genuine concern about justice and equality for women in our conservative society. So we can say that the UCC, Uniform Civil Code, which was perceived as threat to the both ancient Hindu tradition and Muslim identity, the calls for equality from B.R. Ambedkar and All India Women's Conference proved to be little significance. Eventually, the UCC was included Article 44. So Article 40, what is Uniform Civil Code? So what the government want, irrespective of any caste. As we know, the Hindu Marriage Act allow one legal marriage. Muslim Marriage Act allows 4 legal marriages. So why there is an ambiguity between the two castes? So what the article is trying to convey is that like UCC was first initiated by the Jawaharlal Nehru government, and we can say Article 44 of the Constitution says that the non-enforceable, because it comes under the DPSP, which is Directive Principle of State Policy. So we can say that what should be the UCC for a country as diverse and plural as India looked like, and what should be the broad contours where affirmative practice of different communities are upheld and we can say religious freedoms product simultaneously. So we can say that the statute must allow same-sex marriage, treat marital rape and criminal act, revisit age of consent and criminalize the harassment and intercaste and interfaith couples. So 21st Law Commission said a nationwide UCC was not feasible, pointing to the need of greater groundwork and coordination and the recognition basic social realities pertaining to the low status of women. So we can say that, but such justice within the family continues to elude Muslim women. Muslims are still governed by the Shariat Application Act 1937. And what is Shariat is? So Shariat is allowing to the marriage to women. So any Indian woman, we can say any Muslim woman, one who is an age of puberty, so at age of 16 can get married. But if the girl is Hindu, then we cannot get married because of it's illegal. But it is legal in Hindu religion. So that's why government want Uniform Civil Code. So Muslims are still governed by the Shariat Application Act 1937, which requires urgent reforms. This law is silent on important aspects such as age of marriage, consent, meher, which is divorce procedure, polygamy, custody and guardianship of children, and women shared property. So as the UCC remains mired in politics, justice and equality for each Indian citizen across genders and faith must be prioritized as a pilot project of the government must undertake popularization of Special Marriage Act 1954. So Ambedkar's suggestions that the UCC should be voluntary for citizens, that should not be the mandatory. So there is no doubt that 75 years of the independence, Indian women and girls suffer injustice and violence within the outside the home, while जो law है हमारे country का बना हुआ, while the law can be tool for the address certain challenges, we need nothing short of a social and cultural revolution and gender justice equality to become a reality. So irrespective of the different castes, because Hindu Marriage Act, Special Marriage Act, Christians Marriage Act, so what the government want to implement the UCC as per the Constitution in the Article 44 of the Constitution clearly says. But it comes under the DPSP, which is Directive Principle of State Policy, which is not enforceable. So at the time of making Constitution, which says that like UCC should be voluntary for citizen as the Ambedkar statement. Moving further, Here is the next news is about we do not believe in war but will fight in force to Rajnath Singh, which is our defense minister. So India has always been against war, but it is imposed upon us. We will fight in Defense Minister Rajnath Singh said in Arunachal Pradesh. And he inaugurated 28 infrastructure projects by the Border Road Organization. And what is the BRO is? So BRO, which means Border Road Organization, which means BRO was conceived and raised in 1960 by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru for coordinating the speedy development of network roads in the north and northeastern border region of the country. And it was administrative control of the Ministry of Defense. Make sure, so Border Road Organization, BRO, does not come from the Ministry of Road and Transport, it comes from the Ministry of Defense. So it has diversified into a large spectrum of construction and development works comprising airfields, building projects, defense work and tunneling, and entered itself to the people. Now, next one, call for permanent cancellation of bauxite mining lease in Odisha. So villagers reached Bhubaneswar is the capital of Odisha, days ahead of public hearing, raised voice against granting environment clearance to Mali Parvat bauxite mining lease. So these days before the Odisha State Pollution Control Board is scheduled to hold fresh public hearing regarding the granting of environment clearance. So bauxite, as we know, is an important ore that is used for making aluminium. Like if we talk about iron, so main ore is hematite, which is Fe2O3. So it is an oxide of aluminium. It is not a specific mineral, but a rock consisting mainly of hydrated aluminium oxide. And the deposits of bauxite are mainly associated with laterites and occur as capling on hills and plateaus, except in coastal area of Gujarat and Goa. So as we know that India's maximum coastal areas is, we can say, is Gujarat. So producing 1 ton of aluminium, 6 tons of bauxite is required, which produce 2 tons of alumina. So what is export of bauxites? At 80% of the bauxite is used for producing of aluminium, and India export of bauxite have been reduced considerably due to increasing demand in the home market. Still, India managed to export small quantities of bauxite, and the main buyers of Indian bauxite are Italy, 60%, United Kingdom is 25%, Germany 9%, and Japan is 4%. Moving further, Constitution is the basis of vibrant democracy in India, President Murmu. So, President Draupadi Murmu said that living documents was a foundation of India's vibrant democracy, which was the largest in the world. With the spirit of sensitivity towards each section of the society, the Constitution was capable of incorporation and changing hopes and aspiration of the people. So, we have to little bit understand about how our Constitution was formed. And making a reference of 105 amendments made in the Constitution so far, the President said provision of amendments was added to meet the future needs of the country. Jaipur Development Authority and on the Raj Bhavan premises at estimates cost of 9 crores. So we have to understand is what is Constitution is. 26 November 1949. That's why we celebrate as an Constitution Day, and we can say Samvidhan Divas. Samvidhan Divas. So the Constitution Assembly of India formally adopted the Constitution of India that came into force on 26 January 1950. Framing of Constitution is in 1934, M.N. Roy was first proposed the idea of Constituent Assembly. The member of Constituent Assembly, they are from the different princely states as well. There are more than 500 princely states in our country. So under the cabinet, we can say mission plan of 1946, election were held for the formation of Constituent Assembly, and the Constitution of India framed by the Constituent Assembly, that was India appointed a total of 13 committees to deal with different tasks related to the framing of the Constitution. So there were 8 major committee and the rest were minor ones, and that were drafting committee, the member of B.R. Ambedkar, Union Power Committee, the person headed by the Union Power Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru, Constitution Committee, Jawaharlal Nehru, Provincial Constitutional Committee, that was headed by Vallabhbhai Patel Sahab, Advisory Committee on Fundamental Rights, Minorities and Tribal Executive Excluded Area, Vallabhbhai Patel. Rules of Procedure Committee, that is Rajendra Prasad. States Committee, for negotiation with states, which is Jawaharlal Nehru. And Steering Committee, which is Rajendra Prasad. So we have to fact about the Constitution of India is world lengthiest constitution. So more than 700 pages, and with a federal system with unitary feature, which means division of powers, sharing of powers. So most of the power is tilting towards the center. For example, education is the part of a state, but center can make a law is national education policy. National education policy. So parliamentary form of government, which means that executive is solely responsible to legislature. And the framing of constitution took over 2 years, 11 months and 18 days, and the original copies of Indian constitution were not typed or printed. It was handwritten and now kept in the helium file case within the Library of Parliament. So Prem Bihari Narayan Raisda had written the unique copy of Structure of India, and originally the Constitution of India was written in English and Hindi. Both of the language was written. And the Constitution of India has also borrowed some of the features from the number of the countries. So these facts we need to remember, that how long making the Constitution, it took 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. Next is the SC Supreme Court is concerned a small fisherman hit by the Persian nets. Persian nets, I told you, this is something as a method to fishing, which is, we can say, detrimental for the aquatic ecosystem. That we have already discussed this article. So Persian seen fishermen on mechanized boats are allowed to operate beyond the 12 nautical miles, which is the specific economic zone, and territorial waters, and end up the catching hundreds of tons of fish. So court said that this should be curbed. And next news is India said to $17 billion cut in food fertilizer subsidy spend. So to the reign of fiscal deficit. What does it mean, the word fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit, which means that we can say is expenditure is more than, we can say, earning, that we can say is an deficit. That creates aims to curb spending on subsidies that counts to about an 8 of total budget expenditure. So what the government expect? गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेक्ट करती है कि ऑलमोस्ट 2.3 ट्रिलियन जो है फूड सब्सिडीज दी जाए नेक्स्ट फिस्कल ईयर में, और फर्टिलाइजर्स पे ज़्यादा खर्च किया जाए, सो दैट कि हमारी जो फूड इनसिक्योरिटी है दैट शुड नॉट बी डिटेन्ड. And one more thing, fiscal deficit for the current fiscal year is targeted to 6.4% of the GDP. So अगर spending on fertilizer subsidy that will likely to fall about 1.4 trillion, और अगर आप fertilizer पे सब्सिडी नहीं देते हो तो it means that farmers जो होंगे उनको मोटिवेशन नहीं मिलेगी, उनको काम करने में बहुत दिक्कत होंगी, तो उसका इम्पैक्ट आपको होगा फूड इनसिक्योरिटी, विच इज़ आर वी कैन से नेशनल फूड सिक्योरिटी एक्ट NFSA, विच सेज दैट नेशनल फूड सिक्योरिटी एक्ट एज पर द रेगुलेशंस की कंट्री में इतने फूड होनी चाहिए सो दैट वी कैन नॉट फेस द फूड इनसिक्योरिटीज. Next news is talking about government raised windfall tax. So windfall tax on crude oil, export on diesel and ATF. So recently the government has raised the windfall profit tax levied on domestically produced crude oil as well as the export of diesel and ATF. So we have to understand is that कि what exactly is windfall tax. तो जब कोई भी कंपनी बेनिफिट करती है किसी भी चीज़ से which is not responsible for financial gains to ensure the call windfall profits. For example, मैं ऐसे समझाता हूँ, एक कोई इंडस्ट्री है यहाँ पे, होटल इंडस्ट्री, राइट, उसको बेनिफिट यहाँ पे मिल रही है किसी एजुकेशन इंडस्ट्री से. फॉर एग्जांपल कि यहाँ पे एक होटल इंडस्ट्री है, राइट, यहाँ पे इसके पर्टिकुलरली किसी एग्ज़ाम की वजह से यहाँ पे स्टूडेंट्स की बहुत ज़्यादा भीड़ आ गई, क्राउड आ गई, तो सारे बच्चों को होटल चाहिए स्टे करने के लिए, और वो एग्ज़ाम 1 महीने के लिए आ गई. अब इनके इस प्रोडक्शन नहीं थी कि इतनी क्राउड आएंगी, बट फिर भी बट इनका मेन मोटिव ये कस्टमर को सर्व करना था. बट अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट जब अब ये क्या करेंगे, स्टूडेंट्स को कुछ कुछ बुक्स भी प्रोवाइड करना शुरू कर देंगे, नोट्स प्रोवाइड करना शुरू कर देंगे, राइट, विच इज नॉट द मेन एम ऑफ द होटल इंडस्ट्री, देन वी कैन से दैट कम्स अंडर द विंडफॉल टैक्स. तो जब कोई भी कंपनी benefit from something that they are not responsible for, the financial gain that ensue is called windfall profit. And governments typically rely on one-time tax over the above and normal rates of tax on such profits, and that is called windfall tax. So since energy companies are gaining profit not because of any improvement in their process but because of their geopolitical situation, बहुत सारे गवर्नमेंट्स हैं दैट कंसिडरिंग टू इम्पोज सच टैक्स, एंड दिस विल बूस्ट द गवर्नमेंट फाइनेंसेस एंड हेल्प fund efforts to protect vulnerable section from rampant inflation. Next news is talking about preventing animal cruelty is a duty of the state, because that is a part of that comes under Animal Cruelty Act. So we can say that many state festivals, Jallikattu, and we can say soon a constitution bench of Supreme Court of India will divert its verdict on validity of Tamil Nadu's law permitting the practice of Jallikattu in the state. So Jallikattu we can say is a bull fight or bull race that is held in Tamil Nadu. So that is a part of constitution state that prevent animal cruelty is a duty of the state, and the effect of this violation court held that bearing on the right to life contained in Article 21 of the Constitution, and the bench was, we can say, conscious that the right to Article 21 is conferred only to the human beings but should be expand meaning of the word life over the years, which now included a right against disturbance to the basis. So basically it is violation of Article 21 and Article 14, we can say, and it should be the duty of the state that because it comes under the State Animal Cruelty Act. The link between diabetes, wealth and awareness. So there is all things about, we are not going to appear in the NEET exam, so we have to understand it talking about diabetes. So diabetes is often dubbed as a rich man's disease. Studies also show that there is lifestyle change which include sedentary work and poor dietary choices. So we have to understand is that World Diabetes Day that was observed on 14th of November every year, and the 2022 campaign will focus on access to diabetes education. Access to diabetes education. Global WHO launched a global diabetes compact to better fight to the disease, while marking the centenary of the discovery of insulin. How is India moving to regulate online gaming? So Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, which is MITI, has released draft amendments in the relation of online gaming, and we can say that the proposal are aimed at safeguarding the interest of users by introducing set procedure and norms for the verification and users engagement, because experts have welcomed the government initiative to bring online gaming under a central regulation, and this will help curb the menace of anti-national and illegal offshore gambling platform Roland Landers, CEO All India Gaming Federation Industry, which says in an interview. Now moving further on the legality of Israel occupation. So what was the resolution passed by the United Nations General Assembly regarding Israel prolonged presence of Palestine land? So UNGA ended 2020 passing a resolution by asked the body highest court. And one more thing that we can say that here is an issue of Jordan and Israel and Palestine issue. We can say that Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, which is captured in 1967 from Egypt. And what was the outcome? In 2005, Israel pulled out its troops and settles under control of Palestinians. And later on that West Bank and East Jerusalem in 1967 from Jordan. And what is the status? Israel continues to control most of the West Bank, but its support to settlement on occupied land has complicated peace negotiation. And उसके बाद Israel and Jordan जो साइन किया पीस पैक्ट को 1994 में. गोलान हाइट्स दैट इज वी कैन से इसको कैप्चर किया 1966 से फ्रॉम सीरिया से, एंड इसराइल ने 1981 में एक्सेशन किया नॉट internationally recognized. So ये issues इनके Palestine issues चलता रहता है, as we can see from 1946, and as we can see that here is an UN plan for 1947, again 67, 2010. So if we talk about the brief summary of the Israel-Palestine conflict, 1945 में World War II end हुई. 6 million and Jews killed on millions displaced, many Jewish people seeking to save and land of their own. 47 में क्या हुआ कि again UN ने recommends किया splitting Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab state. 48-49 में Israel declares independence. This leads to the first Arab-Israeli war, and Israel seized किया more land than agreed to Aramaic, leading 75k Palestinian Arabs displaced, and Gaza Strip को create किया गया. 49-60 में क्या हुआ, more than 1 million Jews including 250k Holocaust survivors arrives in Israel to settle. 1967 में 6-day war, Israel takes control of many places including Gaza. 1993 में Palestinians and Israeli leaders sign a declaration of principles. 2002 में after a string of suicide bombing, Israel starts building the controversial West Bank barrier. 2005 में Israel agrees to withdraw from Gaza but maintain control of airspace. 2008 में क्या हुआ फिर कि Israel invade Gaza in Operation Coast. 2014 में that the 50-day conflict over the summer in Operation Protective Edge, जिसमें कि क्या हुआ कि लाइक रॉकेट को लॉन्च किया गया इसराइल पे, एंड इसराइल इन्वेड्स गाजा अगेन, एंड बाई 2000 Palestinians and 73 Israelis are killed. एक न्यूज़ में एक आर्टिकल थी लाशिन कॉरिडोर आर्मेनिया एंड द इनक्लेव ऑफ नागोर्नो Karabakh that is blocked by Azerbaijani protests related to the issue of illegal mining of natural resource in Nagorno Karabakh. Now it's time to questions of the day. Here's the very first question. Which of the following statement describe the Wassenaar Arrangement? International Commercial Dispute Settlement Agreement, Disaster Risk Reduction Treaty, Export Control for Conventional Arms and Dual-Use Goods and Technologies, address Internet and computer crime by increasing cooperation among nations. So obviously the answer would be C, for exchange of information, transfer of conventional weapons and dual-use goods and technologies. And Wassenaar Agreement formally established किया गया था July 1996 में. It has 42 members, mostly who exchange information on transfer of conventional weapons and dual-use goods and technologies. All the P5 of UNSCR members except China. और इंडिया इसका मेंबर बना था 2017 and has become its chairman for 1 year in 2023. Being a member means India is recognized to have dual-use technology, and WA is significant for India and is non-signatory of NPT. Next one, non-nuclear aggressions agreement is a bilateral agreement between, bilateral which means having the two country, obvious India and Pakistan. So non-nuclear aggression agreement is an bilateral nuclear weapon control treaty between two South Asian states, India and Pakistan, on the reduction of limitation of nuclear arms and pledge to attack to assist foreign powers to attack on each nuclear installation and facilities. और इसको स्टार्ट किया जनवरी 1992 में. India and Pakistan have annually exchanged list of their respective military and civilian nuclear related facilities. Third one is talking about principle of collective responsibility. So under the principle of collective responsibility, individual members of the government are held accountable for actions and decisions of government as a whole. Principle of collective responsibility is present under Article 75 Clause 3 of the Indian Constitution, which states Council of Ministers shall be collectively responsible to the House of People. And third statement, principle of collective responsibility is the basic structure of Constitution of India. So as we know, that is the only statement. A is correct one. And why it's so? The principle of collective responsibility is not the basic structure of the Constitution. So principle of collective responsibility is the basic principle of parliamentary form of government, and the essence of parliamentary system of government is its responsibility to the legislature. Under the principle of collective responsibility, individual members of the government are held accountable for the action and decisions of government as a whole. और ये प्रिंसिपल ऑफ कलेक्टिव रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी क्या है? प्रेजेंट अंडर आर्टिकल 75 क्लॉज 3 ऑफ द इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन which deals with the special provision of the principle. Article 75 3 clause 3 provides the council of ministers shall be put together accountable to the Lok Sabha only, not Rajya Sabha, which is known to be a house of people. Which of the following is a custodian UN agency for 21 sustainable development goals SDG indicators? World Bank, UN Statistics Division, World Health Organization and Food and Agriculture Organization. So D is the right answer. Food Agriculture Organization is the custodian UN agency for 21 Sustainable Development Goal indicators and is a contributing agency for a further 5. In this capacity, FAO is supporting countries' effort to monitoring the 2013 agenda. As we know that UN Sustainable Development Goals, which clearly says about to eradicate the poverty, and we can say other many things that is from the Sustainable Development Goal that is released by the UN. So, but in the FAO is the custodian of UN agency of 21 Sustainable Development Indicators. The last one, which are the following states, union or union territories have the highest percentage of forest area of total geographical area? Mizoram, Arunachal Pradesh, Lakshadweep and Madhya Pradesh. And the right answer would be Lakshadweep. So the union territory of Lakshadweep has the highest forest cover of around 90% among the state, and Mizoram has the highest forest cover of 85.41%. If you talk about states, so Mizoram. If you talk about UT, there's in Lakshadweep. So this is all about the session, student, and I hope you enjoyed the session a lot. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comment section. And if you are new in this channel, please subscribe the channel as well, and do not forget to press the bell icon so you will get the notification of all the Pratham Test Prep mentors and as well as YouTube sessions as well. And I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much for joining with us. Stay tuned. We'll meet you tomorrow for revision of entire December month MCQ, which is multiple choice question. So I hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you so much for joining with us. Bye bye. Take care and अपना ख्याल रखें और सुरक्षित रहें. Thank you so much. Bye bye once again.